Hey nerds, I just finished my interview with Dr. Jermaine Johnson. Super cool, high energy guy. I think you're going to enjoy the interview. Before we get started, apologies in advance for some of the technical difficulties. The internet connection at my house, kind of in the middle of our interview, went a little flaky, so then I had to switch to the mobile hotspot over my phone's data plan, which worked but resulted in a little bit of delay. And then on top of that, there was something with the audio, so there's a little clicking. I'll try and do as much as I can to clean it up in the post-production process. But it's the internet, and I think what's most important is Jermaine's message, his energy, and his insights about South Carolina and the African American vote. So hope you enjoy it. Let's get right on with the show. Hello, nerds. Welcome to Nerds for Yang. I have a very special guest, Dr. Jermaine Johnson, on the show. Dr. Johnson, what do you have to say?
Hello, nerds!
Oh, damn! Oh my God, I think we have a new champion. Jermaine, I know you and I were just talking before we hit record about how I was celebrating that it's Friday, but this is just another work day for you. Who are you and what do you do?
Well, I am the South Carolina campaign chair for the Andrew Yang campaign. So I do all things all over South Carolina. I meet with everybody. I'm pretty much the political face for the campaign in South Carolina. So when Andrew's not here, I'm his surrogate. I do all the speaking engagements. I go meet with the big wigs. I go do the shaking hands and kissing babies. So I'm the black Andrew Yang when he's not here.
Opposite of Donald Trump.
A black man who loves Andrew Yang, who loves math.
There you go. Oh, that's like a derivative now. That's super cool. Well, Jermaine, what were you doing before you took this job?
So I've got a doctorate in business administration. So I have a consulting firm that I manage. I do workforce development, economic development. So I was seeing all of the things that Andrew Yang was talking about before I was even working for Andrew Yang. I mean, I knew exactly what he was saying when he started saying it. But I do nonprofit work as well, helping individuals who've been to prison, our military vets, as well as our youth with economic and life skills development. I was working with the Midlands Fatherhood Coalition as well for 4 years, where I was helping men get back in the lives of their children. So, I mean, I'm all things of investing in family and community and helping people thrive.
So, have you been in politics? Like, are you part of the Democratic Party
Oh
establishment?
man,
And what's your, how long
yes,
have you been in
yes.
that?
So I've been doing this for a little while now. So I'm the third vice chair of the Richland County Democratic Party. I'm part of the Black Caucus, the Democratic Caucus of South Carolina. I'm an appointed official as well in Richland County, South Carolina, where I'm a Richland County Recreation Commissioner appointed by the governor. I am part of the Young Democrats of South Carolina, as well as the Young Democrats of the Central Midlands. I'm the vice chair of that.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Oh my
so
God.
I do a lot. I do a lot in the political spectrum in South Carolina. Most of my time was just balled up in volunteer work.
So, you're like super plugged in. I'm guessing you probably had considered supporting other candidates. How'd you pick this guy?
So I was a Cory Booker guy at first. I
Mm-hmm.
was a Cory Booker guy. I mean, just the way he was speaking was very inspirational and giving us hope. That whole thing. But then just listen to his words. I mean, he's a great candidate. However, when Andrew started speaking about the actual problems, and I was actually able to see the problems
Mm.
that he was talking about, I mean, when it just made it all the more real for me. When he was saying about the automation and things like that, and then I was going to work and I was taking tours to like big plants like Michelin, and I was seeing these big robotic arms that were moving pallets back and forth, and I'm thinking like, man, how many jobs is that? And then
Mm.
I go to Walmart and I see the self checkout lines that were all over the place, and I
Yeah.
was like, man, that's a lot of jobs there. Then I went to Burger King and it was like a screen where you didn't even have to talk to anybody anymore. You just go to the screen and order your food. And I'm thinking like, man, they're getting people out of here. So I was seeing all of that. And then the thing that really hit home for me was I went to Walmart one night. It was like 11 o'clock at night. And I saw an actual robot riding around Walmart. And it's
Mm.
in my community. And I'm like, man, there's a robot. And so I'm asking work, like, what the heck is this robot doing here? And they said, well, it's cleaning the floors and counting inventory. So I'm thinking, man, well, how many jobs is that gun right
Oh
there?
yeah.
You know? So it just
Yeah.
became more real.
I remember the days when you used to go to the grocery store, there'd always be someone with like a clipboard walking around. I think that
Yeah.
robot is the new guy with the clipboard.
That's exactly what he is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I actually have been following Booker for a while. I remember watching a documentary when he ran for like mayor, I think, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. That was, and I was very inspired by him.
yeah.
But I agree with you that, I mean, he's an amazing orator and he definitely is heartfelt. But I kind of agree with you that Andrew's talking more about like the root causes and then also coming up with these very innovative solutions.
Yeah.
It sort of takes it to a different level. What was your decision making process like? So how long did it take for you when you first heard about, when did you first hear about Andrew? And then like, how long did you
It was like a
decide?
year. It was a year and some change ago, man. I like, yeah. So I was doing my own research, looking
Hmm.
stuff up, and I have to learn about all this economic stuff. And I came across, Andrew, and after I was listening to him, and I went on the Breakfast Club and all that stuff like that, I was like, oh my god, this is a no brainer. Like, this guy is absolutely amazing, with what he's saying. So after that, it was like, man, like this is the guy here. So I was going to all of my Democratic meetings, and like I was, how I just listed them all off, and I was just talking about Andrew everywhere I was at. I was like, man, have you guys heard about this guy Andrew Yang? Like, I was like, have you not heard about this guy? People are like, no, I've never heard of him. I said, man, you have got to look this guy up. He's absolutely amazing. So they were, I was spending half of the meetings just talking about Andrew Yang, like we were in there.
Yeah.
So they were telling me to shut up. So long story short, one of the volunteers, and I'm gonna give him a shout out, Barrett Hurd, who was out here in South Carolina. He was looking for somebody else was a supporter of Andrew Yang, but was also plugged in, kind of like
Mm.
how I was.
Yeah.
So he called the chair of the Young Democrats, and she said, "Listen, we got the perfect guy who who never shuts up talking about Andrew, and oh my God, we're we're gonna put you in contact with this guy." So when they called me, I started screaming on the phone like, "Oh my God! Like this is the guy! This is the guy
I'm ready. Put me in,
I'm
coach.
ready. Put me in, coach. I'm ready to be a starting player, man.
Give me
Put
the
me in. I'm
rock."
ready to go, and I'm gonna score this thing, man. So I was so animated. I mean, you can ask my wife. I was running through the. We were literally going to the hospital because my son was about to be born.
Mm.
And I was running through the parking lot screaming like, "Yeah, I got Andrew Yang people calling me!" So I was so excited. First candidate I've ever given money to.
Nice. Oh,
Yes.
first candidate you have.
First candidate I've ever given money to.
Wow. So why didn't
Yeah.
you give in the past?
I was inspired. Well, when I was in college, I
Mhm.
was I think I was a senior when President Obama got elected. Now I was super, inspired, but I wasn't as plugged into politics back then. So I'm
Mhm.
sure if I was as plugged in, I probably would have given back then. But I just wasn't as plugged in. I was in college. I was a basketball player, But he did have me inspired to get up, and the next day after he got elected, I did get dressed up with a tie on and everything. Went to class and was proud. I got all the newspapers, all the newspapers that I'm framing and all that stuff, But Andrew he was just the first candidate since then that's really spoken to my heart.
No, that was a big moment in '08. I still
Yeah,
remember. That was
yeah.
crazy. What I remember more than the than winning the general and even more than the inauguration was Iowa. Was
Yes.
was the first when Obama had that speech and
Mm-hmm.
he started where he said like they said this day would never come.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
It brings like
Yes.
goosebumps, right?
Yes. Yes.
Oh
Yes.
my
Yes.
God.
I mean,
Yeah.
I was just proud to
Yeah.
be, a person, but I was more proud because my parents got to see, this thing happen,
Yeah.
and my mom, she was born in 1950.
Mm.
So I mean, she saw everything from the beginning, the Dr. King and all that
Oh
stuff. She
yeah.
watched Dr. King in Atlanta. I mean, all this stuff like that. My grandparents were still alive then. So I mean, I just can't. My grandfather, who worked on a plantation,
Mm.
he was born in 1905. But back then there was a lot of things that were still going on in the event that a lot of African Americans didn't even realize they were free. A lot of them were still being held captive and things like that back then in those days. And my grandfather, he ran away, but he was able to see all of this stuff all the way on up to Obama. I mean, it's just an amazing feeling. So I was able to actually talk about when I had Andrew come down to College of Charleston out here and meet with the president of College of Charleston,
Mm-hmm.
who was the first person pretty much of color to ever be elected at the College of Charleston. He's an Asian as well. And I said, man, I can only imagine what they're both feeling. It's the same thing that I felt when President Obama got elected. I mean, it's an amazing feeling to do that.
That it would be historic.
Yes.
It would be historic for sure. What? And by the way, are your parents still with us? Are they around?
They are.
Yeah.
They are still alive and well. My father actually was hanging out with Andrew the other day.
What does he
So,
think? What
yeah,
does he
yeah.
think?
So he wasn't Yang Gang before, but he is definitely Yang Gang now. Like he is. He got his hat. He got his shirt. He has everything autographed. He got a book for my sister. Got that autographed for as well. He said Andrew is absolutely the most qualified individual to be the president of the United States. I mean, and when he called me, so he called me with Andrew, and Andrew got on the phone. He was like, "Listen, this is family first. I'm gonna take care of your dad." So I mean, my dad has never been that type, but my dad's been calling me every day, multiple times a day since then. Say, "Have you talked to Andrew yet? Have you talked to Andrew yet? Can you tell him what I said?" And I'm like, "Man, listen, I got it. All right, I'm gonna see him on Saturday." But I mean, my dad loves him now.
That's awesome. Hey, Jermaine, I'm hearing a little bit of tapping. Are you tapping?
No. Uh-uh.
No? Okay. No, we're as okay, let's just keep going. It's not terrible either way.
Okay.
What about your mom? Is your mom on board?
Yes. My mom is on board. She's Yang Gang.
Where was she leaning before? Was she undecided?
She was leaning Biden.
And was that a hard transition for her? How did you convince?
Well, the thing is because I've got like like an inside scoop on most of this stuff. I'm able to give them the real viewpoints and the real opinions and things like that. See, a lot of people who aren't in these campaigns, they don't know what's really going on behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. All they see is what people put out in the media and what the media keeps feeding you. Right. They don't know what's really going on. So I'm able to give my parents like an insightful, thing, and they trust my opinion, they trust my judgment because of all the work that I do. So they know I'm not going to lie to them. I'm going to give them my honest opinion on everybody. Yeah. And, now my mom is all over CNN, like, "I'm looking for your boy. I'm looking for Andrew. I'm looking for Andrew." So I'm like, so I send her links and things like that so they can check in on it.
Yeah, well, it's kind of sad that you have to look really hard sometimes because sometimes the news almost goes out of their way not to include him.
Yeah, like they did today.
with the money raising, right?
Yes.
And
10
it's
million,
like, what?
And you're putting everybody else up there, and obviously he's like, one of the top ones in raising money in this quarter. So
what do you think? Part of me feels like there's a little bit of implicit bias against him because he doesn't look like a normal traditional presidential candidate. But I don't know. I might just be a little paranoid. But it seems like it keeps happening. Like, what do you think is going on with that?
It happens over and over and over again. And I believe so as well. I believe the thing is they truly, honestly, the media, they don't believe that Andrew can win. And because they don't believe he can win, they're just saying, well, it doesn't matter if we exclude him now because he won't be here too much longer. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you something. He has proven everybody in South Carolina wrong because everybody thought I was crazy for supporting this guy. And they thought I was crazy for saying that he's going to be in here for the long haul. And they kept asking me, well, people kept saying, well, what campaign are you going to work for after this is over with? I'm like, no. I said, Andrew Yang. And they said, well, who are you going to support after? Who's your secretary? I said, Andrew Yang. So they didn't believe me, but, I knew it. When I first met him, when I first talked to him way back I think I talked to him way back in May. Mm-hmm. And I said, this is the guy, man. This is the absolute guy. And I just saw the light and I heard his sincerity. So I just knew.
Yeah, that reminds me. I was having lunch actually yesterday with a friend who's a Buttigieg supporter. And he said to me, "Oh, hey, how have you been?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's crazy what's going on, with the news and everything." And he said, "Yeah, so like, who do you think's gonna win this thing?" And I was like, "Yang." And then he's like, "No, but really, like, who do you really think?" And I was like, "No, Yang is gonna win the whole goddamn thing." And he's like, "Oh, so you really?" I was like, "Yeah." And then basically. Yeah. Well, and now that when you lay out like who's in front of us, it's not like Biden, Sanders, and Warren are these like thoroughbred racehorses that are untouchable. I mean,
Exactly.
they all have their issues.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's not like we're running against, like, if we had like an Obama candidate, okay, then I would be like, well, that guy's
Hmm.
like going to be really tough. But I don't feel like Biden and Warren and Sanders are flawless for sure.
Exactly. Well, they all have their flaws, you know,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
all of them have their flaws. But I'm saying that, Andrew's the only one that's really talking to the core issues and the problems that we are seeing literally every day. I
yeah,
don't know any other candidate that's saying something that's going to really change my life the day that they're elected. They're not
yeah.
saying anything, you know. The day that they're elected is not going to change my life. But if Andrew gets elected, the day he gets elected, his number one policy is going to change my life. It's going to change my children's lives. It's going to change my grandchildren's lives.
The
It's
whole
going to change my
community.
great, yeah, it's going to
Yeah,
change the entire community. It's going to change Flint, Michigan.
yeah.
It's going to change Denmark, South Carolina, that's dealing with water issues. It's going to change
Hmm.
Spartanburg. It's going to change Eastover and Hopkins down here in South Carolina. It's going to literally change and transform communities. It's going to transform people's educational, aspirations. It's going to transform businesses. Literally, the day he gets in there. So I don't see anybody else saying anything or trying to push anything that's going to literally do that the day that they're elected.
One thing that I'm curious about, Jermaine, is the polls in South Carolina are not sort of reflecting the energy in this conversation.
Uh
And
huh.
I'm curious, like, what's going on? Like, it's such a strong message, in my opinion, and it would, to your point, affect so many people in the first term
Yeah.
or even first year. It's surprising that he's still like low single digits. Like, what do you think is
Hmm.
going on there?
So let me go ahead. If y'all didn't know, from April to all the way up until I think September, I was the only staffer in South Carolina. Y'all probably didn't realize that.
You
Yeah, I
were the
I
South
was
Carolina office.
I was South Carolina. So because because I was South Carolina, it was kind of hard to get the message out. Across a state that has 46 counties, we have over 5 million people. Two New Hampshires and the Iowa can fit inside of South Carolina in terms of population size.
Mm, mm,
So trying to get out to all those individuals, and the Democratic Party here in South Carolina is 2/3 of the party,
yeah.
and that's African American. So we have to get that message out to the African American community if we want to really affect something. Right now, it's just frankly just Joe Biden has a hold on that because of name familiarity.
Yeah.
So all we really have to do is just get that message out. But now that we've got a team of staffers that are here, we're steadily hiring individuals right now. I will be able to focus on literally just driving to all 46 counties and talking to all the different communities just to really translate the message. So when I talk to individuals, because Andrew speaks on such a high intelligence vocabulary, I kind
Hmm.
of break it down for people. Like, hey, listen, do you look at shop on Amazon, or you look on Google? Yes. I say, all right. Well, do you have Facebook and that? Yes. Well, when you open up your Facebook after you searched on Amazon, what do you see? Oh, I see ads. I said, well, because of that, that's what Andrew wants to put some taxes on. He wants to put some
Hmm.
tax on that stuff. And because that's your data and you get your money back. And they said, oh, man, I didn't understand that when he explained it. So I'm kind of like if you've ever seen that Saturday that SNL skit where dude is translating, I'm the translator.
Well, maybe not as angry though. That dude's
Yeah,
pretty
not as
angry.
angry. I'm not the angry translator. I'm just the Andrew Yang translator.
You're the happy translator.
Yes.
So, like, that's a great point in that the approach that the communication style of Andrew speaks to like podcast listeners who love like these long form
Hmm.
policy wonkish kind of detailed
Yeah.
conversations. But I agree with you. That's not how you win in a general election. It's not how you get like, to become a front runner. Like, how does it work when Andrew's in South Carolina? Do you think he needs to kind of tweak his style, or should we just let Andrew be Andrew and then we kind of complement him with surrogates? Or how do you think that's going to happen?
Yeah, I think we just let Andrew be Andrew because Andrew's gonna be Andrew regardless. You see him skateboarding around, so Andrew's gonna be Andrew.
He's
But
just
that's
going to
why
crowd surf his way into South
yeah,
Carolina.
exactly. He does that stuff. But if you've noticed that every time he comes to South Carolina, he goes viral.
Yeah.
So so we just allow him to be him, and I just I'm the person who introduced him at like every event. So
Hmm.
I just do my little thing before him, and then after that it just sets everything off in motion for that. So letting Andrew be Andrew and just surrounded with surrogates to go ahead and translate any of the information or to really break things down the way that they need to be broken down.
How many times do you think, let's say, if he visits like a huge church and he gives a talk there, how many times do you think he would need to come back, or the folks in the congregation would need to hear the story for it to really kind of like get them to flip and become Yang Gang supporters? It's going to take a lot of repetition, or
I don't think it's going to take a lot at all. I think it's going to take two or three good times of good explaining.
yeah,
Because the thing is people just don't understand. Everybody says, "Well, how are you going to pay for it? Well, how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay?"
hmm
That's the only thing that I hear. And then as soon as I break it down, they're like, "Oh my God, I really have to listen to this guy. I
yeah.
really have to pay attention." But they don't. They just don't understand. And even though Andrew is breaking it down, they're still not understanding. So that's why I was saying that what my job is very important to really break it down to get them to see and just put it into simple terms. So I just think 2 or 3 times of him just making his waves, just coming here doing what Andrew does, I think he'll be fine. He's been here only about 3 times, South Carolina.
hmm
So, I mean, if you just think about it, if he spends, the next couple of months coming here, I mean, South Carolina will be Yang Gang.
So let me do this with you, Jermaine. I'm guessing there are probably some common questions that you get, and since we're recording this interview, we could have it for posterity, and then thousands of people will see it. So I'm going to ask you, why are you supporting Yang? And then I'll ask you, well, how will he pay for this freedom dividend? And then what's a third common question you get?
Reparations.
So first one is like, why do you support Andrew Yang?
I'm supporting Andrew Yang because I have seen the actual issues and problems that he's speaking to. As a black man, a lot of people ask, well, how come you're not supporting Kamala Harris or Cory Booker or somebody else like that? Well, it's because Andrew Yang is actually speaking to the problems that I'm seeing every single day with the people that I'm trying to assist with employment. So because I've seen it, I was like, man, that's just speaking to my soul. But also, I grew up in a very, very impoverished community. I've been homeless. I went to 7 different high schools. I've been in places where we didn't have electricity in our house, and I'm eating, frozen hot dogs off a candle. Things like that. I've seen that, so I know what that UBI could have done for my family. I know what that could have done for my sister, who was a single mother of a bunch of kids. I know what that could have done for my family. It could have changed, our family, wholesome. So because I know that, I know there's other people that are out here that's dealing with that same issue, these same concerns right now. That I know this UBI can really change our community.
Well, this UBI sounds great, but that's almost too good to be true. How would you pay for it?
Well, as the black man who supports the Asian man who's running for president, so we all know that data right now is a big thing. You see a lot of stories going on about data breaches and things like that because people are stealing data because they know how much it's worth. That stuff is worth so much money. So with that being said, you got these big companies that they're paying low or $0 in taxes. So it's time to put a tax on these different things. And it makes perfect sense. I mean, we all, know who, 1 out of every 7 people right now are on Facebook, So I mean, we've got social media that's just ridiculous right now. So that's why people as soon as you sign onto your Facebook or whatever, you start seeing, the ads for all the different things because people know. Like, matter of fact, Tom Steyer, he has been all over social media. Just open yourself, you're gonna see Tom everywhere. So he knows the importance of social media and how he can monetize that. He's pretty much bought his way into the polls. So it's time to put a tax on these things. People shouldn't be monetizing your data because you own your data. So he puts a tax on that, and that's where a lot of that money's going to come from.
Now, how much did Amazon pay in taxes?
0.
All right, let me ask you one more question, and then I have some other stuff, but this will be for the clips that we produce from this video. UBI sounds great. It sounds like it also goes to everybody, rich, poor, black, white. What is Andrew Yang's position on reparations for the African American community?
Andrew Yang supports reparations. So the thing is, I even put out a tweet about this. A lot of the community, they're getting it mixed up. They're thinking that the UBI is a supplement or something that's going to replace reparations when that's just frankly not true. What it is the UBI is justice for being an American. But however, reparations is completely separate. It's a completely separate fight than the UBI movement. So we can essentially African Americans can continue to fight until they get reparations along with the UBI. So it'll be in conjunction too. So we need to understand that reparations, as much as we want to go, we've got so much data on reparations. I mean, this data out there, so we know what reparations would cost, but we just have to face it that the government is not going to sign off on anything until they conduct their own interview or their own research on what reparations is going to look like. That's like dealing with you see a lot of these sheriff departments and these police departments. We know that they did something wrong. They know that they did something wrong, but they say, you know what? We're not gonna issue out any citation until we conduct our own research, and then we'll figure out if we did something wrong. That's what the government is doing. They're saying, listen, we know what reparations looks like. We know how much it is. Everybody out here knows what it is. However, we still need to pass HR 40. HR 40 deals with the study of reparations. So they have to go through a study. And we know what the government's going to do. They're going to lag their feet on that as well. They're going to say, oh, well, this is going to take 15 years or whatever, to get the information on what we already know what reparations is. And then once they pass that, then they have to say, all right, well, what is reparations even going to be? How are we going to implement the reparations? That's going to take a while. So I essentially do not believe that reparations will be passed within my lifetime. However, I would like to see it, but I don't think it'll be passed in my lifetime. So why not try to go right now to deal with something while we continue the fight for reparations? Because I think that eventually it will happen. I just don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime.
Let me shift gears a little bit, Jermaine, and ask you about how we're getting the Yang message out in South Carolina. So you talked about growing the team, and so now there's a bigger presence. What's your take on like radio, direct mail, TV, that kind of thing? Obviously, Yang's pretty big on the internet, but I'm wondering, are you guys doing anything with the traditional media or anything like that?
Not really. Here in South Carolina, it's more face-to-face contact. If you have face-to-face stuff, you can turn anybody to anything if you have face-to-face contact here in South Carolina, because we've got it's a lot of elders here in South Carolina. So if you can get in front of them to say, hey, hey, check this guy out and talk about this guy, or if he can come out here and meet them, you get a more of an opportunity to really see how they will respond to some of the policies and all that. They're here because a lot of people here aren't really big computer and social media individuals, so we don't have a big presence on the internet. But it's a face-to-face type of strategy we have to have here.
So they're not logging into Reddit every day.
They're not logging into Reddit every day.
They're not making memes in their bedroom.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what do you think is the biggest difference between South Carolina and, let's say, like Nevada and New Hampshire? Do you think we need a different strategy for South Carolina than what we're doing in other early states?
Absolutely, I believe so. The other early states, the demographic is different. The education down here is different. The financial, the household income is different. I mean, we talked about some of these searches that New Hampshire was doing for the Yang gang. They were looking at people who were making $75,000 or more, and we're down here looking at people that make $50,000 or less. It's just the whole strategy on the poverty situation that we have down here, the demographic in terms of the Democratic Party down here. I mean, everything pretty much is just different in South Carolina. We're on the Bible Belt, so a lot of faith-based communities down here. So the strategy down here has got to be completely different. We have to address the concerns of the African American community. We've got to do it. Down here, you cannot win without the African Americans in South Carolina. You can't do it. And specifically talking to the African American woman. Without the African American woman, you're not going to win anything. So we've got to have a message for them.
One of the things that I've struggled with is I've seen, I think it was on the Breakfast Club, or maybe like it was an interview where someone asked Andrew, like, well, what's your view on Black issues specifically? And for me, the UBI seems like it would benefit all groups of all backgrounds, especially like traditionally kind of groups that have been left behind in sort of the economic booms. And so I kind of feel like his policy is beneficial to all demographics. But I'm trying to understand, like, what do you think are the biggest issues that the Black voter is focused on that are different than what the voter in New Hampshire or Iowa is focused on?
With the African American community, A lot of things that we're dealing with is just being at the lower end of the totem pole.
Hmm.
We know the biggest disparities between African Americans and the rest of, like, the other races is just financial, it's economical. So because we don't have access to these different things to start businesses, historically we've been disenfranchised for small business loans and housing and all different types of things. So because of that, this UBI would actually help us to. It would actually be we would be the biggest beneficiaries,
Hmm.
with the UBI, because now we have this extra income to start this business, or we have this extra income to get the house. I mean, here, I thought you can get $100,000 house, and that's a big house compared to the rest of the United States. In South Carolina, $100,000 is a big house. So and that mortgage right there is maybe $600 a month.
Yeah.
So instantly overnight, you can eradicate homelessness in South Carolina instantly. So with that being said, we're going to be the biggest beneficiaries of it. It's going to allow us to have more access to education, transportation. We have a lot of food deserts here in South Carolina, where there's no stores around and people don't have any transportation to even get to the store. So they're really they'll band together and say, hey, if you're going to the store, I'll go to the store with you. Or we have a lot of poverty down here. So and then you got the Denmark, down here in Denmark, South Carolina. We have the corridor of Shane, where a lot of industry is out. So we have a labor shortage in South Carolina, and the labor shortage, we actually have more jobs available than we have people to fill them.
Mm.
But the issue with that is automation, but also it's not having enough skilled workers to even fill those positions that are available anyways. So we have that, along with areas where there are no jobs. So we have places where there are jobs, it's just overrun with jobs, and places where there aren't any jobs, there's just nothing there.
Yeah.
So it's a huge dynamic that we have to overcome.
What are those skills that the parts that have lots of demand for jobs and aren't yet able to find enough skilled labor? Like what are the skills that they're looking for?
It's like some manufacturing stuff, some mechatronic stuff.
Mm.
So we have Boeing down here, and Boeing is huge. So Boeing was promised by our Republican governor that we had this, big skilled workforce and all this that, but we don't. We don't have this big skilled workforce. So they started bringing in people from other states and flying people in to come live here, to move here, to fill those positions that we didn't have, to fill for them. So they had promised they promised us that they were going to hire people from our community and all that. They couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. So because we oversold them on a labor workforce that we did not have. We
Yeah.
have we have Volvo that opened up. We have BMW that opened up, and all these places are literally dealing with the same issue. We have Kraft Heinz out in Newberry. They asked me for 360 people. They're just like, man, we just cannot find people anywhere.
Where will people acquire these skills? Do you think community colleges or trade schools, or how will we close this gap?
They have to either go to they got to come up with either an OJT program
Hmm.
or something to where it'll be community or tech schools. We have a few of those here,
Right.
community or tech schools. They're going to have to do that, but there's other issues that keep them from getting school loans and all that, like the felonies or the things on their background, the criminal offenses.
Hmm.
So because we have a lot of people that are in jail for nonviolent offenses, for marijuana charges. So we recently just passed something in the city of Columbia, the capital, that was a ban the box, to where employers can't ask anymore about if you've been convicted of a crime. So because of that, it's just throwing monkey wrenches everywhere you turn. Every time you try to get a leg up, they're pushing you
Yeah.
back down, and unfortunately, it just affects the African American community more.
So that freedom dividend could be used to help with some of this trade school or technical school as well, right? I would
Yeah,
imagine. Yeah.
yeah, it would help for the odds and ends, because we have a place called SC Works down here, where they help people with paying for trade schools and paying for their schooling and all of that. But you have to fit certain criteria, of course. So the people that do fit the criteria, it can help pay for books and transportation and any of the odds and ends things that are keeping people from going back to school.
All right, Jermaine, I know we only have about 6 or 7 minutes left, but I wanted to get a little bit of insight into what it's like working at the campaign and spending time with the man himself. What's he like when the cameras are off and he's just like doesn't have the makeup on and
He's a goof troop. He's a goof troop. He is a goofy guy, man. So I mean, we just talk about anything and everything, basketball, your life. One thing he called when he called me the other day, and he was with my dad. He just reassured me that he said, "Man, listen, this is family first." And so he's a big family guy. We shake hands, and every time he sees me, you're going for a handshake, and he's giving you a big hug. So
Right.
it's just
Right.
you're just like, man, like, okay, brother, all right. But he likes to hang out. He likes to just talk to you about anything and everything you want to talk about. He just gives you the information. But he's really sympathetic. So he's got an open ear. He'll listen to anything you got to say. A lot of people are saying, well, how do you know he has an agenda for the black community or anything like that? I'm like, man, listen, I'm talking to this guy every single day, and I'm a huge advocate for African Americans. So I wouldn't put my support behind anybody who did not care about me personally and my family and my community. So because of that, I mean, it's just like, man, this guy he's just down home, cool guy. Even though he went to Exeter and I went to Trinity Pauling and Winchendon, and my school's way better than his. But I mean, he's still a cool guy.
So I've seen pictures of him playing basketball, and I've also heard that you've played a little basketball back in the day. Have you
Yes.
played together?
So we haven't had the opportunity to play together yet, but when I took that tweet out about Ted Cruz and all that stuff like that, I just knew we were going to set something. We were going to set something up. So I actually I played at prep school, and for prep school I was actually one of the top basketball players in the country. So I played some pro ball. I got paid to play some basketball. I had a good time.
Have you been on the court with Andrew?
I haven't, and I need to. When I see him, I'm taking him to the court, man, because I'm gonna have to show him a few new moves for when he plays Ted Cruz. Show him my signature spin move.
So are they really gonna do? Are he and Ted Cruz really gonna play? Or are they just talking?
They really are gonna play. Like, this is gonna be something serious. They really are gonna play. Yes.
For real.
Yes, it's really gonna happen, man. It's really gonna happen. I actually talked to Zach about it, and if we were gonna play that game against his staffers and our staffers, I was literally on standby to fly out of Columbia to go to Houston to go play that game. We talked about it and everything, like literally that day.
Oh yeah, that might you might be the secret weapon for the Yang Gang on that one.
Yeah, and I think we might even hire Dominique Wilkins for a day or so. Play on a team.
Like a red shirt. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, Jermaine, I know you're on a busy schedule, but the last question I had was, what would you like people who are still kind of on the fence, not sure if they want to support Yang, what would you want them to know, or what would you want them to think about as a message from you to them?
Yeah. So I would say that, just to go to your local grocery stores, or go through your local community and just have a look around. A lot of the issues that Andrew Yang is talking about, we're choosing to be blind to a lot of these issues. I didn't realize it until I opened up my eyes. Walking to the store, when you go to Walmart or these stores and you're looking and you see self-checkout lines, every time you use self-checkout lines for convenience, you're encouraging automation, and that's somebody that's lost their job because of that. We're not really looking at these things. Every time you go on Amazon, you're encouraging automation. You're encouraging the closing of your malls in your community. You're encouraging these things. I mean, I'm not saying don't use them. I'm saying just understand that this is winning. But it's okay, because we just need to embrace the future and come up with solutions that will answer the problems of tomorrow. Also know that Andrew Yang is a big family individual, and because he's a huge family person, he cares about your family. He cares about my family. And if you care about families, I mean, the stronger the family is, the stronger your community is going to be. We can get back to a time where, if you did something wrong in your neighborhood, you was getting in trouble by the neighbor before you even got home. And then we got home, your parents was gonna get you too. And then you would go back to the neighbor and apologize and mow their lawn. So I mean, it's things like that we can get to or get back to, that he's really pushing for.
Well, Jemain Johnson, I will put a link to your Twitter in the description as well. Thank you so much for spending time with us, and I am super eager to get you back on, man. I feel all pumped up already, and I'm already in the Yang Gang.
Yes, that's the point, man. That's the point. Make sure you stay tuned to my introduction. I got a good introduction coming for Andrew tomorrow, so it'll probably be somewhere out there. But I plan on getting some good Showtime on CNN or something with my intro.
Oh, yeah. Well, I will put a link to that as well below for everyone to see Jermaine Johnson's amazing Yang Gang intro. I will say your Hello Nerds is legit.
Yes. Yes.
I'm sorry, Scott. I'm sorry, Scott, but there's a new king in town. All right, Jermaine.
Yeah. Go Yang.
Keep it real.
All right.
Okay. So now we're recording. And so I'll start. I'll say, hello, nerds. And then I'll say, I'm so excited to have Jermaine Johnson on the show. Say hi to the nerds, Jermaine. And then you can do you can try to do one. But, Scott Santon had a pretty good hello, nerds app.
Mine is definitely going to be better. I've been practicing, man.
Oh, shit.
Scott, you don't want these problems, brother.
Oh, my goodness. Well, we'll see. We'll see. A lot of people talk the big game, but big-time players have to make big-time plays.